Hey, everybody. Good to see you today. We have a fantastic topic about making safer data for a safer world, something we can all get behind. Andy Fernandez, how are you?
Hi, Evan. Happy to be here.
Great to have you here. It should be a really interesting conversation, very topical in this world of ransomware and cybersecurity. Maybe introduce yourself and who is Haiku?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Andy Fernandez. I'm the Director of Product Management here at Haiku. And what we are, Haiku, is data protection as a service for the world's modern application.
Well, that's a very high level mission statement. So we're gonna dive right in. What was the initial imperative for Haiku, given there's lots of cloud storage and other storage solutions out there? Why Haiku? What was the founding mission?
Yeah, and the idea fundamentally from the beginning was to build a safer world. And when you think about where the world was a couple of years ago when Haiku started, it was around protecting mission critical infrastructure that was on premises. Think Nutanix, think VMware. But Evan, what
Mm,
we've noticed, especially within our own customer base, is how the world has drastically changed. It's not just about protecting the castle on prem and a couple of windows there. It's about protecting a sprawl of data across cloud, across SaaS. So this safer world has become much more complex and intricate, and the evolution of Haiku was essentially we aim to protect what you care about as an organization, right, from a critical perspective. And now what you care about lives in very, very different places. So that's why Haiku started, and it's to keep with the times and not simply try to repurpose a backup solution for new workloads. It's about to be able to protect them as they're meant to be protected.
that's a great mission. So many data silos. You have on-prem and the cloud and hybrid and everything in between. So how do you go about that? What does the basic platform look like?
Absolutely, no, that's a great question. So when you think about every single generation of a workload, right, whether it was physical, virtual, and then cloud, you would have a backup vendor kind of surround themselves around that, and they would become the de facto vendor for that. When you look at today, it's not about one type of workload; it's about dozens, if not hundreds,
Mm,
right? Every single organization, especially your traditional hybrid organization, has some version of production applications on-prem. They have some versions of cloud infrastructure, cloud services, and they have dozens, if not hundreds, of SaaS applications. So being able to protect that requires a platform that one can extend to protect one, but still works with each application natively. So as you probably heard from a couple of months ago, we announced the R Cloud platform. And what our cloud platform is kind of a sign of the times of where we are today. And the basic problem statement there was there are thousands of SaaS applications in the world. And every time I go look up the news, it changes. It started at 17,000, then you see 20,000,
mm.
30,000. There are thousands that continue to come up. There is no backup vendor that can develop that on their own. Traditional backup development was, hey, there's something our customers need, let's go build for that workload. That does not exist in a world where you get organizations like Notion, Miro, within a couple of years, pick up a critical
Mm.
market share. So what we delivered was, look, at Haiku, we have perfected backup policies, granular recovery, storage orchestration. And what we were able to deliver now is a development experience, a development platform where ISVs, SaaS companies themselves, and their partners are able to build upon that. And what we do is we essentially decentralize the development of applications. And now we can keep up with the ability to protect services wherever they are because we have multiple planes of development. So instead of, hey, at Haiku, we protect Salesforce and Microsoft 365 now, it's, hey, at Haiku, we protect critical infrastructure on-prem, public cloud infrastructure and services, and so many dozens of SaaS applications as well.
Oh, that's really intriguing. And how do you stay ahead of the curve on cybersecurity threats? We're in a plague of ransomware attacks and other attacks daily. What's your strategy there, given this sort of ever-evolving threat landscape?
No, absolutely. So when it comes to cybersecurity, we have a very, very defined responsibility from Haiku as a data protection vendor. Of course, there's always adjacent things you can do to help the prevention,
Mm,
but we know there's always going to be an actual encryption scenario. So you have to have that last line of defense, which is actually recovery. So we
Hmm.
let the experts in cybersecurity take care of prevention, the networking, firewall permissions, and we focus on being the best to be able to recover data from a safe, immutable copy that is actually outside. But let's take SaaS, for example.
Hmm.
SaaS applications are extremely dangerous. They're incredibly valuable and they bring so much benefits and scale to companies, but you also have a completely different playing field now where a customer can get exploited directly, right, via phishing. We've seen a rise in phishing attacks directed at SaaS applications, but then you could also have a supply chain attack as well. So you know that there's going to be a constant high volume of threats. You have to be able to guarantee the recovery because it's not a matter of if, but when. I know it's cliche, but it is a reality. It was a reality in the virtual world, but it's definitely a reality in the world of cloud and SaaS.
Fantastic. You also talk a lot about data visualization. How does that help me as an IT manager or practitioner in terms of my enterprise storage?
No, that's critical. You can't protect what you don't know that exists, right? And one of the core elements here, this came from conversations that we would have with our customers. And we would sit down with CISOs, with CIOs, and VPs of
Mm,
IT. And every single time we have this conversation, by the end of the conversation, with a couple of questions, they would have 10 times more SaaS applications that actually existed. You always get folks alluding to the usual suspects. Yes, we have M365, we have Workspace,
mhm,
we have AWS, but there's so many critical applications that sometimes sneakily get adopted in the org, but then
mm,
become mission critical. Take things like Salesforce, things like
mm,
Notion, Jira. All of these are critical SaaS applications that are used every day. Now, what we developed and what we're very proud of at Haiku is we provide a free service embedded into our platform, of course, called rgraph. And what
mm.
rgraph does is, as long as you have Okta or Azure AD as your single sign-on provider, or the new name for AD these days, we will visualize all of the SaaS applications there, identify them by department, and even expose the ones that don't have recovery capabilities from a
Ooh,
native
fun.
perspective.
Nice.
The reason I bring that up is there's still this massive myth in the world of SaaS that you don't have to protect it, that the SaaS vendor will do it for you.
That's
You and
what
I
I thought
both
before
know
this call. Well, actually,
it, maybe
I
not,
was pretty,
but
perhaps a little more naive than you, but yes, that's what one assumes most of the time.
so let's use this as an example. You have a parking garage. You have a parking garage. You go into the parking garage with your car. The garage is responsible for making sure that you can park, that you can pay, and that the lights are on.
Mhm,
But if somebody scratches your car, if somebody steals your car, the garage assumes no responsibility. And
mm,
every single cloud and SaaS service follows the same rocket lawyer shared responsibility model, which is, hey, we will take care of the system. If there's an outage, we will recover everyone. But the tenant is responsible for their data if it's deleted, corrupted, or even encrypted. So every single SaaS app that we use out there follows the same model. And we even perform this own exercise at Haiku. We emailed support of all of the SaaS applications that we use. By the way, we use a lot. And every single one of them said, look, you're supposed to be doing your own backups. We are not responsible. We'll do what we can, but legally, there's nothing that we can do. Not that they help you and provide backup and recovery, but they do not take responsibility.
wow, that's a great differentiator, something I imagine very often overlooked. And you have 3,600 or so customers around the world trusting Haiku with its services and solutions. You must hear quite a few anecdotes and stories about recovery and recovering crucial data. You care to share any, or I imagine that's often kind of privileged or private information, but it
I
would
could
be
share a
interesting.
couple. I could share a
Uh-huh.
couple and not mention specific names, but I'll
Okay.
give you an example within AWS. So take AWS. Everyone thinks that an AWS application is just an EC2 instance and that's it.
Hmm.
No, there are dozens of services, right? With it's not just about protecting the entire VM, taking a snapshot, calling it a day, going home. It's about looking at every single service that is interconnected and touches EC2 that makes up an application. Things like IAM, things like EC2, the databases, the storage, all these other things are critical. What we've been able to do is not only help our customers perform file level, item level restores in the cloud and save them tons of time, but we actually help them focus on what's most important. and that is development. When you think about how much time companies are actually spending on backup, it's a full-time job, if not more. And that's just
Mm,
VMs. That's not even alluding to SaaS or to cloud. If every company truly protected all of their SaaS, they would spend a lot of time and a lot of people trying to do so. What we've been able to do for our customers, especially the ones that I'm alluding to, is take away dozens of time managing scripts, configurations, and protocols for very specific things and automating the entire process. So backups, even of modern services within AWS, are minutes instead of hours, weeks spent on just managing the scripts for them. Backup is
brilliant.
easy, Evan. Recovery is difficult. And doing recovery in an easy way is even more difficult.
Yes, it's definitely a black art. I would agree with you there. So what is your go-to-market like? How do you work with partners and channels? I assume you have a pretty complex, multifaceted go-to-market.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Evan, from our go-to-market perspective, everything that we do is with our channel partners. Everything that we do is with our channel partners. And we pride ourselves in working with them
Mm,
to meet the needs of their customers. But our
nice.
go-to-market has evolved drastically from resell and managed service. Our partners are actually development partners now. What I
Mm,
mean by that is partners have now started to realize, like, look, we have to offer more than just M365 backup. We have to protect every other critical app that exists. Salesforce, Jira, Okta, Notion, Miro, all these critical SaaS applications must be protected. So we're actually working and helping our partners also expand their scope of what they can offer the customers and build services upon that as well. And one of the other things that I'll mention as well is from a development perspective. As I mentioned, there's if we look at the end of this interview, there's probably 100 more SaaS applications that came out, right?
mm.
Our partners are critical development partners as well because they see the value, they see the opportunity to not just sell something, but to actually solve a critical problem for the customers as well. And so our go to market is not just about, hey, this is who we sell through, it's, hey, this is who we solve problems with. And they're also design partners of ours.
Wow, that's a really interesting and innovative approach to the market. That's fantastic. So you're on the product management side. How do you stay on top of requirements given their new SaaS applications every day? You have new AI use cases, new clouds emerging. Uh, how do you stay ahead of it all? I guess is the question, and get some
So,
sleep in the process.
so I'll be fully honest. Nobody here is ahead of the game when it comes to this. Nobody is. But the way that we approach it is customer first. So I have my theories. We can sit down one day over a drink and I'll tell you everything that I think will happen. But everything that we do is customers come to us and say, hey, we know that you're protecting us for this, this, and this. We really need to go and protect that. And by that criticality is that's how we stay ahead of the game of what we're supposed to protect. And however LLMs and Gen AI take place, when customers come to us really asking us to protect this, that's what we really focus on. And I'll give you an example, Evan. Our
Hmm.
graph, right? We show this beautiful treasure map or this tree that shows you all of the SaaS applications that exist within your organization. When customers see that, they build a plan and they say, okay, first of all, we need to protect all of this, but here are the ones that are most critical. That ability to deliver that service, that visualization is the best product management experience you could ever have because customers will tell you exactly what they need to protect versus us sitting in the ivory tower saying, well, we think people use this SaaS. Let's go build that. Like, no, let folks tell you directly. And that's how we stay on top as much as we can.
Oh, it sounds like a very practical approach. What about different industries? I mean, it sounds like every industry needs what you have here, but I imagine you have some sweet spots, maybe in healthcare, some related industries where data is king, queen in the kingdom.
No, absolutely. So obviously, there's going to be folks who immediately come up to mind, right? Your healthcare, financial
Mm,
services, legal,
sure.
energy, public sector, even federal from that perspective as well, as far as our on-prem solution. But what we're realizing though is anyone who cares about how quickly they can get their data back is a customer of ours. And that is a global phenomenon. But anybody who, one, cares about recovering from ransomware, but also has to retain their data. I'll give you an example, Evan. For some reason, folks, when they go to SaaS, as we talked about, assume that they don't have that responsibility.
Mm,
Data retention is something that gets overseen. And I'll give you an example. You're a healthcare organization. You just moved to an electronic health records SaaS, and on prem, you had a requirement to store data for 7 years. Suddenly you're not storing that data anymore because you're
Wow.
assuming the SaaS vendor is doing it. But when you have to demonstrate recoverability in an audit, that's not going to cut it. So now you start to see the dynamics that fold here about not just checking the backup box, but also the cyber resilience component and even the data retention and compliance component as well.
Wow. Sounds like I need to check out what my local doctor's office is using
You
for
better check.
backup and
Maybe you'll
data
get a discount.
retention. I don't really want my 7 years of medical records being left in the dust. So, fantastically interesting space. So lots of events out there. You must have a busy Q4. I think we got reInvent coming up, so many others. What are you excited about or looking forward to out there travel wise? Or are you just keeping your head down and working on
No, we're
deliverables?
absolutely going on the road. So
Okay.
we're going to be at reInvent. Please stop by our booth. There's a lot to talk about. But we're also going and talking to organizations of SaaS applications as well. For example,
Mm,
the Atlassian community. The Atlassian community has some of the most important applications that belong to every single development group and
sure.
IT group. Jira Software, Confluence, Jira Service Management. So we go to these community events and we don't actually talk about product at all. We just say, folks, you've all migrated to SaaS. Let's talk about what your blueprint is to protect it here. Here are your requirements. Let us help you build a plan. So a lot of the time that we're spending is not just the usual suspects like reInvent, Ignite, all these other
Mm,
industry standard organizations, but also meetups. The folks who are
mm,
actually protecting these groups, the developers, the admins, the scrum masters who are responsible for these apps, we're on the road there as well. So you'll see us in London and Amsterdam and Vegas. You'll see us all over the place. And then I'll rest it.
brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. Well, wonderful work. Everyone check out Haiku. Thanks so much for sharing just a few minutes of your insight and time. Really interesting stuff. And reach out to Andy or others at Haiku with any questions or comments. Thanks very much, Andy. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Evan.